The mockery, the Galactic Assembly Hall floated in the void between star systems, a crystalline monument to 1,000 civilizations' achievements. Inside its vast chambers, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the quarterly evaluation of species deemed primitive by the Council's standards. Today, humanity stood trial. Ambassador Elena Vasquez maintained her composure as the Zafrani delegates' melodic laughter echoed through the chamber. The creature's translucent body rippled with colors that denoted amusement. Its 6 eyes focused on the holographic display showing Earth's latest technological submissions. Chemical rockets, the Zafrani ambassador chimed, each word dripping with condescension. They still use chemical rockets for space travel. How quaint. The Korvax representative, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, pulsed with agreement. Their most advanced quantum computers barely scratch the surface of true computational power. They process information sequentially, linearly like counting stones. Elena watched as Earth's achievements were dismissed one by one. Their fusion reactors were called toys. Their medical breakthroughs were deemed elementary. Even their recent developments in artificial intelligence were compared to the first stumbling attempts of civilizations that had transcended physical form millennia ago. The Thylorian delegate, whose species had mastered genetic manipulation to the point of becoming living weapons, leaned forward. Perhaps we should reconsider Earth's provisional membership. They contribute nothing of value to the collective knowledge. We contribute perspective, Elena said quietly, her voice cutting through the murmurs. The assembly fell silent, more out of surprise that she dared speak than respect. Perspective? The Arcturan Prime, eldest of the Council, unfolded its crystalline form. What perspective can a species offer when they haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel without our charity corridors? Elena smiled, a distinctly human expression that several species found unsettling. The perspective of those who must solve problems without the luxury of transcendent technology. We see what you've forgotten how to see. Laughter rippled through the assembly. The Zafrani ambassador's colors shifted to deep purples of dismissal. And what exactly do you see that we cannot? Connections, Elena replied. Patterns. Possibilities that your advanced sciences have taught you to ignore. She gestured and a small device materialized from her briefcase. It looked remarkably simple. A cube of ordinary metal with geometric patterns etched across its surface. Several delegates didn't even bother to scan it, so unremarkable did it appear. For the past 5 years, humanity has been working on something, Elena continued. Not with quantum mechanics or exotic matter manipulation. Not with technologies you'd recognize as advanced. We've been working with something far more fundamental. The Korvax representative's energy field flickered with impatience. Speak plainly, human. We don't have time for your theatrical presentations. Elena activated the cube. Nothing visible happened. No lights, no energy signatures that their advanced sensors could detect. Yet something in the room changed. A subtle shift that made several of the more sensitive species uncomfortable. We've been studying the spaces between, Elena said. The gaps in reality that you've all learned to ignore because your technologies work around them, over them, through them. But we, with our simple understanding, we wondered what would happen if we worked with them instead. The Thylorian delegate scoffed, its bioarmor rippling. Philosophical nonsense. The quantum foam is well understood. Subspace is mapped. What spaces between could you possibly mean? Elena's smile widened. The ones your instruments can't see because they're calibrated to ignore them. The same way your eyes learn to ignore your nose, your consciousness filters out what it deems unnecessary. But humanity? We're still new enough to see what's really there. She turned the cube slightly and the geometric patterns realigned. Still nothing the assembly's vast array of sensors could detect changed, but the Arcturan Prime suddenly straightened, its ancient consciousness catching something the others missed. What have you done? It whispered. We've found the doors, Elena replied simply. The ones that have always been there. The ones you've been walking past for millions of years because your evolution, your technology, your very advancement taught you they couldn't exist. The cube pulsed once, not with any energy the assembly recognized, but with something far more fundamental. Reality itself seemed to hiccup just for a fraction of a second. In that moment, every being in the assembly felt it, a vast presence, an awareness of something immense just beyond perception. You speak of our simple rockets and linear thinking, Elena continued, her voice steady despite the growing tension in the room. But sometimes the simple path is the only one that leads to the complex truth. Sometimes you need to count stones to understand the mountain. The Zafrani ambassador's colors had shifted to uncertain yellows. This is a trick. Some sort of psychological manipulation. 3 days, Elena said, deactivating the cube. The sensation vanished, leaving only memory and unease. In 3 days, we'll demonstrate what humanity's simplicity has discovered. We invite you all to the Earth system. Perhaps then you'll understand why the universe made us so primitive, because it needed someone who could still see the obvious. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and you might want to recalibrate your sensors. You're going to need to see things you've forgotten how to look for. As Elena exited the assembly, leaving behind a room full of the galaxy's most advanced minds, not one of them noticed the subtle change in the chamber's quantum signature. Not one detected the microscopic door that had opened and closed in space-time itself. But 3 days later, they would all remember this moment as the day humanity stopped being the galaxy's children and became its teachers. The revelation. The Earth system had never hosted so many alien vessels. They hung in space like jewels against the darkness, each ship a testament to its species' technological prowess. The Zafrani arrived in vessels that phased in and out of visible space. The Korvax came as living energy storms contained within geometric frameworks. The Thylorians brought bioships that pulsed with engineered life. All of them waited. Sensors trained on the small human space station orbiting Mars, where the demonstration would take place. The station itself was almost insultingly basic by galactic standards. Rotating rings for gravity, solar panels for power, and hull plating that wouldn't withstand even a glancing blow from a micrometeorite at relativistic speeds. Inside the station's primary laboratory, Dr. Marcus Chen made final adjustments to an array of devices that looked more like abstract art than advanced technology. Geometric shapes and configurations that hurt to perceive directly, each one covered in the same patterns that had adorned Ambassador Vasquez's cube. They're all here, Elena reported, entering the lab with General Sarah Morton, Earth's military liaison to the project. Every major civilization and most of the minor ones. Even the void swimmers sent an observer. Marcus nodded without looking up from his work. Good, the more witnesses, the better. Sarah, are your teams ready? The general, a woman who had seen Earth through first contact and survived 3 assassination attempts by species who thought humanity too dangerous to live, checked her tablet. 12 volunteers standing by. All of them understand the risks. There are no risks, Marcus said quietly. That's what they'll never understand. We're not forcing anything. We're just opening doors that want to be opened. Through the station's viewports, Earth turned slowly, blue and white and perfect. Marcus had spent his entire career studying what others ignored. The patterns in quantum collapse that didn't quite match theory. The spaces in mathematics where equations suggested something should exist but nothing did. The persistent anomalies that advanced civilizations filtered out as noise. Initiating demonstration, Elena announced over the Galactic communication channel. The response was immediate. Thousands of sensors focused on their small station, recording everything across every spectrum known to science. Marcus activated the first device. Like before, nothing happened that any alien sensor could detect, but this time he didn't stop there. One by one, he brought 12 devices online, each one calibrated to a specific frequency that existed in the gaps between conventional physics. Humans, the Arcturan Prime's voice resonated through the station. Whatever you're attempting, our sensors detect nothing. This demonstration, the Prime's words cut off as reality shifted. It started as a shimmer like heat distortion in empty space. Then it solidified, and before the assembled fleet hung something impossible. A doorway in the void, edges defined not by matter or energy, but by the absence of space itself. Through it, another universe was visible, similar to their own but subtly different. Stars burned different colors. Physics itself operated on altered constants. The Korvax delegates' energy form fluctuated wildly. Impossible. The energy requirements to breach dimensional barriers would require thinking like you do. Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying across the channels. You calculate the energy needed to break through. We calculated the energy needed to ask permission. He gestured to one of the volunteers, a young woman named Lisa Park who had been born on Mars, humanity's first truly interplanetary generation. She approached the doorway without hesitation, despite the protests erupting from a dozen species. "You don't understand what you're doing," the Thylorian delegate roared. "Dimensional breaches could destabilize." Lisa stepped through. The protest stopped. Every sensor, every consciousness, every fragment of attention focused on the human woman who now stood in two universes simultaneously. She was whole, unharmed, and smiling. "The doors were always there," Marcus explained as 11 more doorways opened around the station, each leading to a different variation of reality. "Every quantum event, every collapsed waveform, every decision point creates them. You develop technology to work within one reality. We developed understanding to work with all of them. Through one doorway, a universe where stars burned cold and dark matter was visible. Through another, space itself had crystallized into geometric patterns. A third showed a reality where time flowed backward relative to their own." The volunteers began stepping through their assigned doorways, each one proving that humanity had not just discovered these passages but understood them intimately enough to traverse them safely. "This is what simplicity gives us," Elena announced to the stunned assembly. "You see the universe as it is. We see it as it could be. You developed faster-than-light travel by bending space. We found the places where space already bends itself. You manipulated matter at the quantum level. We asked matter what it wanted to become. The Zephrani ambassador's form had gone completely transparent, overwhelmed by the implications. The energy signatures, there are none. You're not powering this. How? We're not creating anything." Lisa's voice came through clearly from her position between worlds. "We're just recognizing what was always there. Like finding a door in a wall you've walked past 1,000 times." General Morton stepped forward. "Every species in this galaxy developed along predictable paths. Energy manipulation, matter conversion, quantum mechanics, each building on the last. But humanity? We were forced to develop differently. Our simplicity wasn't a weakness. It was evolution preparing us for this." Marcus brought up holographic displays showing the mathematical proofs. They were elegantly simple, the kind of equations that made advanced minds wonder how they'd never seen them before. "Your technologies are hammers. Powerful, precise hammers, but still hammers. We developed keys." The Arcturan Prime's crystalline form shifted, its ancient mind processing implications that stretched across cosmic time. "If this is true, if these doorways have always existed, then every assumption about the universe's limitations is wrong," Elena finished. "Faster-than-light travel becomes obsolete when you can step into a universe where you're already at your destination. Energy requirements become meaningless when you can borrow from realities where energy is infinite. Death itself becomes negotiable when you can find universes where different choices were made." The demonstration continued for 3 hours. The volunteers moved between realities, bringing back samples. Water that flowed upward, metal that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, light that cast shadows darker than void. Each impossibility perfectly stable, perfectly safe, perfectly integrated into their reality through humanity's simple understanding of the spaces between. When the doorways finally closed, the gathered fleet remained silent for long minutes. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had just watched. Humanity leaped past them not through superior technology but through a fundamentally different understanding of existence itself. The Thylorian delegate was the first to speak, its bioarmor rippling with something that might have been humility. "We called you primitive. We laughed at your rockets and your linear thinking. And that's why we found what you couldn't," Elena replied, "because we were still simple enough to ask simple questions, like children who haven't yet learned that certain things are impossible." The implications hung in space between them all. Humanity hadn't just opened doors between worlds. They had revealed that everything the galaxy thought it knew about reality was merely one perspective, one narrow view of an infinite cosmos. And they had done it not despite their simplicity, but because of it. The new dawn 6 months had passed since the demonstration at Mars, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Assembly had relocated to Earth, not by choice but by necessity. Humanity's homeworld had become the nexus of a transformation that no species could afford to ignore. In what was once the United Nations building in New York, now expanded through dimensional architecture, to accommodate beings of every size and nature. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before a gathering that included not just the galaxy's species, but representatives from 17 alternate realities. Dr. Marcus Chen had been right about the doors wanting to be opened. Once humanity showed the way, the passages began revealing themselves everywhere, as if the multiverse itself had been waiting for someone to finally notice. But with that revelation came a crisis that threatened everything. The Devourers are coming, the representative from Reality 7 announced. Its form a shifting mass of possibilities. They've consumed 3 universes in our cluster already. When realities open to each other, predators follow. The assembled beings shifted uneasily. The Devourers were entities that existed in the spaces between worlds, feeding on the boundaries between realities. For eons, they had been kept at bay by the simple fact that no one knew how to open the doors. Now humanity's gift had become the galaxy's potential doom. General Sarah Morton stood beside a tactical display, showing the approaching threat. The Devourers appeared as voids in spacetime, areas where reality simply ceased. They moved between dimensions like sharks through water, drawn to the energy of open doorways. Our projections show they'll reach this reality cluster in 72 hours, she reported. Every advanced civilization has thrown their best weapons at them in other realities. Nothing works. You can't destroy something that exists in the absence of existence. The Korvax delegate pulsed with agitation. This is humanity's fault. You opened the doors without understanding the consequences. We understood perfectly, Marcus said from his position at a console covered in geometric patterns. We also understood something else. The Devourers aren't invaders. They're antibodies. The statement sent ripples of confusion through the assembly. The Arcturan Prime's ancient consciousness focused on the human scientist. Explain. Marcus brought up holographic displays showing the pattern of Devourer movements across multiple realities. They only appear when realities are forced open, when the boundaries are broken by power rather than permission. But look at our doorways. He highlighted Earth's dimensional gates. Not one Devourer has emerged from any passage we've created. Why? The answer came from Lisa Park, who had become humanity's first interdimensional explorer. She stood partially phased between 2 realities, comfortable in a state that would drive most beings mad. Because we don't break the doors. We knock. Elena took control of the presentation. Every species here developed technology as conquest. Faster than light travel conquers distance. Energy manipulation conquers matter. Even your ascended forms conquered death. But humanity? We developed technology as conversation. She gestured to the geometric devices that now lined the assembly hall. These don't force reality to bend. They ask reality what it wants to become. The Devourers aren't attacking us. They're responding to wounds in spacetime that your technologies have been creating for millennia. The Zephrani ambassador's colors shifted through spectrums of disbelief. You're saying our entire technological foundation is wrong? Not wrong, Lisa answered. Incomplete. You learned to shout at the universe until it listened. We learned to whisper and hear it respond. General Morton pulled up tactical displays. The Devourers are drawn to forced breaches to realities torn open by power. But we've discovered something else. They can be communicated with if you speak their language. The assembly erupted in chaos. Communicate with entities that existed in non-existence? The concept defied every understanding of consciousness and communication. But humanity had already begun. Marcus activated a new configuration of devices, and the geometric patterns throughout the hall shifted. The assembled beings felt it immediately, a presence vast and alien, older than galaxies, simpler than atoms. The Devourers were listening. They're not destroyers, Marcus said softly. They're gardeners. They prune realities that grow wrong, that force connections that shouldn't exist, but realities that open naturally, that choose to connect. Those they protect. Through the dimensional doorways, the approaching voids were visible. But as Earth's devices hummed with their impossible patterns, the voids began to change. They shifted, moved differently, with purpose rather than hunger. Elena addressed the assembly with the gravity of someone announcing a new age. We offer every civilization a choice. Abandon the technologies that tear at reality's fabric. Learn the simple art of asking rather than taking. Or face the Devourers not as victims but as infections being cleaned from the multiverse. The Thylorian delegate's bioarmor bristled. You expect us to abandon millions of years of technological development? No, General Morton replied. We expect you to evolve beyond it, the same way humanity evolved beyond seeing the universe as something to conquer. Lisa stepped fully into their reality, carrying something from another dimension, a seed of crystallized possibility that shifted through every color that existed and several that didn't. This is from Reality 12. They made the transition 300 years ago. They say it's like being a child who finally learns to speak instead of cry. The seed pulsed, and every being in the assembly saw visions of what could be, civilizations that danced between realities without violence, technologies that grew from cooperation with the universe rather than domination of it, possibilities infinite and beautiful, all accessible to those simple enough to ask. The Arcturan Prime, oldest and proudest of the galaxy's minds, did something unprecedented. It descended from its position of elevation and approached the humans as an equal. Show us how to be simple again. Over the following hours, humanity taught the galaxy's greatest civilizations something that their children could have understood. Instinctively, how to see the universe not as a challenge, to overcome, but as a partner in infinite possibility. The Devourers arrived exactly when predicted, but they did not attack. Instead, they surrounded Earth like a living shield, protecting the one species that had learned to open doors properly. Through humanity's simple wisdom, they began to teach others, transforming from antibodies into guides. The Korvax delegate, its energy forms stabilizing into patterns that mimicked humanity's geometric keys, pulsed with something like wonder. We spent eons developing technologies to break through barriers. You spent decades learning there were no barriers at all, only doorways we'd forgotten how to see. Elena smiled, that distinctly human expression that no longer seemed primitive but profound. That's what simplicity gives you, the ability to see what's actually there, not what your advancement tells you should be there. As Earth's sun set over New York, it illuminated a transformed galaxy. Ships that once bent space now asked it to curve. Weapons that once destroyed now convinced matter to change. And throughout it all, humanity's geometric patterns spread, teaching civilizations older than Earth's sun how to be young enough to see miracles. The mockery had ended. The teaching had begun. And in the spaces between worlds, reality itself hummed with approval as its children finally learned to speak its language. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy or surpassed its technology. They had done something far more profound. They had reminded the universe's most advanced beings that the greatest discoveries come not from complexity but from the simple courage to see what was always there, that the doors between worlds stood open, not forced but welcomed, and through them, infinite possibilities flowed, guided by the species that everyone had dismissed as too simple to matter. But then, the most profound truths always are simple. Humanity had just been the only one still capable of seeing them. As the assembly dispersed, each species carrying humanity's geometric keys back to their worlds, a new age began. Not an age of human dominance, but an age of universal simplicity, an age where the spaces between were finally recognized as the most important spaces of all. And in those spaces, the Devourers danced with joy, for the children of reality had finally come home.